Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my books there. So, good news, bad news, in that um, the streaming platform I'm using has changed their settings so that they allow me to now stream in 1080p. So hopefully the video of me is a little bit clearer and more crisp. The downside is literally seconds before we were starting this live stream, I was plugging in my microphone, and I've never had this happen before. The microphone cable, the pins inside the cable snapped. So my microphone is fine, but the cord that plugs into it is broken. So for this week, hopefully the audio is not too echoey, not too crappy, but you're just getting the room tone from my camera microphone. So better quality video, worse quality audio, considering the fact that we're going to be switching over to, well, what do you know? This whole time I was sitting here yammering, I forgot to even set up the screen share for my tablet. So here we go. Sorry about that. I got so caught up in the screen not working that it just threw me into a tizzy. Or not the screen, the microphone not working. Anyway, for some weird reason, whenever I add it, I have to take it out and then add it in again for me to actually see it. But here we are, back to what we should be doing. In many ways, because this is going to be the cover art for a short story I'm doing about a demon and a dog, a demon and a dog that switch places. Will switch bodies. So kind of like think Freaky Friday meets Hellboy. Anyway, I started sketching out some rough ideas for a cover. And I figure we'll see how far we get with this, whether I actually get to starting the actual cover art today. But for now it'll be thumbnails. And I see Omar is already in the chat. Hey Omar, how you doing? Thanks for popping in. Thanks for stopping by. For some reason, I don't know, maybe it's just like the weather changing, but I wake up in the mornings a lot of times and I just have a frog in my throat and it's just hard to get my voice back to normal. So let's see here. The working title for this comic is Demon Dogs, but we'll see what it ends up being at the end. Let me get the opacity up. I kind of like the logo more stacked as opposed to elongated. And it kind of reminds me of Demon Days from the Gorillas. I thought about spelling it with a Z, but again, that goes to Demon Days, which is spelled with a Z as well. To be honest, I got, it's pretty straightforward as far as illustration ideas go. Just the dog and the man standing side by side. I've got some reference in the sheet here. I wanted to make him based on a black Labrador. I just think it's a really cute dog to have as like a supernatural creature. And I might a little bit be influenced by the Venture Brothers because I want to say that a black lab is the form that Dr. Orpheus's master takes. I'm gonna try one of these with red, and then I'm gonna try one of these where, like, I'm thinking red, but then giving the figures glowing eyes. But I'm gonna try one where everything else is blue, and then just the eyes of the two characters and the logo are red. Which are my two different approaches. I'm thinking. The more I sketch this in, the more I'm already thinking that the blue version is really what's gonna pop. Don't know if I actually even really need a horizon. I mean, it feels weird to just have them floating with no ground plane whatsoever. So maybe what I will do is I will just sort of indicate a shadow behind them, just enough to give you a sense that they are standing on some sort of surface without really having to draw a background. Hidden glowing eyes, dog with glowing eyes. And this is funny because obviously I've brought up perfectionism many, many times about how long I spend working and overworking pieces trying to get things just right. But I really am kind of thinking this one can kind of go. And that makes sense because my intent with this series is that I haven't given up on the Greek mythology comic that I'm going to be doing next. This is just a short story because it's been so long since I've been doing any comic work that I wanted to get back into the flow. So it's just a little short story to work on while I'm still working on my perfectionist project where I'm writing and rewriting. And the fact that this is just something that I'm like, all right, it's good enough. I think that's probably a good attitude to have for a short, fun story to have. Now, this is interesting. Dylan mentions, hi, Jeremy. I was just watching Night of the Living Dead for the first time, the 1968 Romero film, the original. And I will tell you that I envy you, Dylan, because I have not rewatched it in probably over a decade, and that's way too long. But that is a classic film. So, and I just have to imagine that, I mean, because it's not even a horror film, it's more of a thriller. It's kind of like a psychological thriller that's dressed up as a horror film, kind of a psychological thriller with social commentary. But I consider that movie a classic. I'm curious to hear what your reaction in a world where we've had The Walking Dead and we've had all of the the Zack Snyder movies and we've had the 28 Days Later, and there's been so many zombie TV shows and zombie films and different approaches to zombies. I'm curious to hear what your reaction to one of the earliest, because it wasn't it was the first mainstream zombie movie, but it wasn't the first zombie movie. So I am curious what you thought about it, what you took away from it, whether you enjoyed it. Now, what I'm going to do with this little one that I duplicated here is I'm going to hue, saturation, adjust it to the blues that I want, and then just repaint the eyes and the logo in red. So let's say, get this to kind of a, not quite blue green, but kind of a in between a baby blue and a navy blue, somewhere in there. Let me knock down the saturation. I'll try to leave the brightness the same. So if I want this to be a little bit darker, then maybe what I do is move it to a cooler blue. Right in there somewhere. And it's always, I have to fight the urge to make things more saturated because my buddy Carl Alstetter, um, shout out if you're at LA Comic Con, check him out. He's at the show. Him and his daughter Mia are both knocking out some cool artwork. I definitely recommend checking that out if you guys are there this weekend. But yeah, my buddy Carl said that I tend to color with a bag of Skittles. Like I feel like I have to use everything at full opacity. So it's challenging to force myself to really mute my palette. But I think that that kind of restraint is useful. Let's see here. You know what? Again, don't need to overthink it. So, in terms of Night of the Living Dead, Dylan says, yeah, I can see that. I'm enjoying it. I'm not a fan of zombie movies, especially the modern ones. So this one was more my style. I was about halfway through it. It's slow, which I knew was a possibility. Yeah, it's originally the original slow zombies. That whole movie is just one long, creeping, like you just see death coming for you at a slow pace and just keeps getting step by step closer. Um, And Dylan says the movie actually gave me an idea, which I wrote down in my pocket notebook. Now that is good to hear because you know in the same way that The Walking Dead, people kind of thought, well, we're zombied out after however many years of Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead and the other spin-offs. But I think that good stories inspire ideas. And it makes sense that you would go back and watch an old zombie movie and it would give you more ideas in the way that, like, I mean, there's so many vampire stories that are all inspired by Dracula. And the director Robert Eggers has a new Nosferatu film coming out, which to me looks fantastic. And it looks like it takes a bit from the Dracula mythos, a bit from the original Nosferatu film, a bit from the Coppola film. Like there's all these little pieces and flavors I saw in the trailer, and none of it felt. It didn't feel like he was reinventing the wheel. It just felt like he was giving us a really, really good wheel, which is what I like to see in movies. And here we go. Hey, JR is in the chat. Welcome, JR, or JRR. JRR, welcome. And thanks for joining. And they say, haha, I find myself having the opposite problem with color. I tend to get muddy colors and have to go back and up the saturation. That is an interesting point there. One of the things that I have been trying to do, my main thing is I actually really, really enjoy doing thumbnails way more than I do finished art. I love doing just rough sketches and doing that simple concepting and figuring the world out. That's my favorite part of the creative process. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is I always say that color isn't my strong suit, but I think we can talk ourselves out of a lot of creative opportunities because of negative self-talk. And what I've been trying to do is tell myself, instead of saying, oh, I'm bad at color, to just spend time doing more color thumbnails as opposed to black and white thumbnails. And I think that's thumbnailing to me, a lot of people hate thumbnails, but it's a chance to work out all of the problems that we say we have with our final art. Everything that we're critical of, and we're like, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I were better at that. The thumbnails are a chance to practice those things. You know what? I gotta tell you, the fact that I am drawing on top of the text that I already wrote in blue, but now I'm redrawing it in red, there is something about this that is interesting to me to the point where I kind of want to do the logo. When I do the final logo, I kind of want to do it the same way, where I do it in two different styles. And this is one of the few times, normally I find a font and just distort it. But this is one of the few times where I think I may actually do a completely hand-drawn logo. But yeah, I get your point about things being muddy. Well, for me, it's less about saturation. For me, it is saturation. But when I hear the idea of having muddy colors, that feels like it's more about whether you're using saturated or desaturated. It might be still, you know what? I just realized it is the exact same problem. The Skittles problem is using too many colors. So it's like everything is bright and everything is screaming for your attention, so there's no focus. Muddy colors are the desaturated version of the Skittles problem. It's not necessarily that you're using desaturated colors or oversaturated colors. It's that you're still your colors aren't necessarily bracketed to like one dominant color with one or two accent colors. And when you do that with fully saturated colors, you get the Skittles problem. When you do it with desaturated colors, if you've got like, two or three colors fighting for dominance, plus another two or three colors accenting on top of that, but you're doing it with muted colors, that's what muddy colors are. It's just using too many. I say the next time you're going to do something, instead of having to go in and bump the saturation up later, I say you start by deciding one color that's going to be your dominant color. Make that color muted. And then you get one additional muted color, and one additional saturated color, and just use those three colors. Try that and see if that doesn't change things for you. Because I don't think it's that I don't think it's about saturation for you, the problem you're having. I think it's about too many colors overall. Now that, mind you, that's me talking out of my ass, not having seen any of your artwork. So I really take it with a grain of salt, is what I'm trying to say here. But I think it'd be an interesting experiment, and hopefully you will try it and report back. So let's see. Back in the comments, let's see here. Dylan says, oh, going back to Night of the Living Dead, of course the woman faints a lot, weak, emotional, not clearly thinking. It's a product of its time. Yeah, I mean it's very gendered. I mean, as a lot of old horror films are, but it gave us a starting point. I mean, think about the fact that we've gone from that to like Maggie in The Walking Dead. So we've made some progress in terms of our horror heroines, you know. So that's the good news. And Dylan says, I'm excited to see the new Nosferatu. In my humble opinion, I thought the teaser trailer was too long, so that tells me the other trailers will most likely spoil the movie. So I'm only seeing the teaser and the first trailer. You know what? You're right. I did see a lot in that trailer. And to be honest, given because I've only seen a couple of Robert Eggers films. I saw The Lighthouse, which I really okay. The Lighthouse, I enjoyed it, but with the caveat that it is a very strange movie. It really is just a movie about two men battling insanity. Um, but given that, it is still a very, very strange movie. And then there was the I can't remember the name of it, but it was the Viking movie with Alexander Skarsgård, where he's trying to avenge his family's murder, and that one, yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but that one was really good too. Point being, and I know he's got. I want to see The Witch. I've been wanting to see that for a while. I know he's got a few other films. The tone of this, they really could have made the trailer like the opening like 20 seconds and the closing 20 seconds. Like it really feels like it should have been shorter. They showed us a lot. Um, I think they could have paced that out more. But we live in an era where you know trailers spoil everything. Don't leave anything to the imagination. And I think you make a good point there because his movies benefit from not knowing what the hell is going on. That's a a great sense of attention that it has. So I agree with you. Um, Dylan also says, I watched a couple of Scooby Doo episodes last night. So you're really getting into the horror theme this season. Like you're jumping right into the Halloween spooky season. But then again, hey, I'm drawing a comic with demons, so I guess I'm right there with you. And it just occurred to me to put horns on this O. So we'll put a little right in there. You know, and I was trying to decide what to do. Like I felt like the space was a little bit empty. And originally I was trying to decide about putting some shadows, I tried drawing shadows behind them and then shadows being cast forward, and neither one of them worked. But what looks interesting to me would be to let me drop the low opacity and see if this works. Because I kind of want to build this up. Put a big arrow. That's too low. You know what? I would be stupid to not just use layers, so I can delete this if it doesn't work. But what I'm thinking is putting a couple of, not a couple, but to put like a large demon tail behind him, behind the dog. Let's see. JRR says, yeah, for me, it's both, unfortunately. Value and saturation I have trouble with. It gets muddy. I do think I gotta plan things out more so the thumbnail advice will help. Yeah, sketching things out and doing like I am lucky that I am fairly happy with how these two thumbnails, the red and the blue one, have come out. Normally when I'm doing any color piece, I will usually do like 2 or 3 pages of thumbnails. So maybe like 10 to 20. Like I am seriously not joking. 10 to 20 different thumbnails just for color before I figure out something that I'm happy with. And I think that experimenting and playing around at these tiny stages, because I mean, you saw how quick it took me to finish, like in the beginning of the stream, finishing that first one, then just coming here and tweaking this one. Yeah, so color thumbnails are your friend. So Dylan says, I bought a Disney Plus subscription so I can watch Agatha All Along, Hocus Pocus, and the other Halloween media. You know what? Interestingly enough, my wife and I just started watching Agatha All Along, and we're definitely enjoying it. It's like she has not seen WandaVision, so she's definitely coming into it kind of like a blank slate. She knows that it's part of the Marvel universe, but I had to tell her like at the end of the second episode when she was starting to watch stuff and like seeing how Agatha was acting, I said, just so you know, she's the villain. This is a show about the bad guy. This is not like she's an anti-hero. She's not the Punisher where she's, gonna evolve into somewhat like seeing her going through some stuff, or or Deadpool, where Deadpool, definitely started off as a killer, but now he's a killer with a heart of gold. He's everyone's favorite, mercenary with a mouth. Everyone's favorite merc with a mouth. But I said, no, this is a story about a villain. And I expect her to act as such. So, I mean, I'm sure they may give her some redeeming qualities towards the end, but I think it would be. I mean, Loki, they turned Loki into a hero, and I loved Loki, and I want more Loki. They ended him in a good place, so if they don't bring back the series, that's fine. That said, I don't know if I want them to repeat the cycle we've seen in comics of taking a villain and trying to redeem them and eventually have them come evolve into a hero. I would really like it if they did also a very interesting story about Agatha, and in the end, she ends up betraying people and taking power for herself and continue. I mean, I would like to see her have some level of compassion and maybe the young guy who's the witch with her to help and protect him, like she obviously seems like she's bonded to. But I would like to see her maintain her role as a villain while still having some empathy for her. Kind of like Magneto. Anyway, all right. Random. Let me get back to the comments here. JRR says, "Would you do color studies and thumbnails in school?" Oh, would do color thumb studies and thumbnails in school, and it helps. But lately, just illustrating on the fly, I jump into things with bad planning, and I get muddy color and value situations. Well, and to continue, got to get back to thinking more. Sometimes I can do autopilot, but colors and values, I'm not there yet, and got to focus up. Well, I will tell you that I have been doing artwork for decades now. I've been out of school for a long time, and I still I still am weak at color and need to do thumbnails, and I'm constantly working, like, starting with value first and then moving towards developing my colors. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with needing to for me. Like I expect to have to do color thumbnails my entire life, and it's not like I mind it. I enjoy it, so it's fine. But I think it's one of those tools that it's like measuring. It's like measuring except with color. It's just one of those tools where it's always there, and it's always worthwhile to do. And to be honest, doing color thumbnails to me, sitting down, like I'll tell you this, I don't usually do a lot of commissions at conventions because I find it hard to do my best work when I'm sitting at the table. But when I do a commission, one of the things I learned was to not just start sketching. And now that's a situation where you really are in a time crunch. That person is expecting to come back and pick up that work before the end of the show, before the end of the day. I found that if I wanted to give the 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 person who commissioned me a piece that I could be proud of, that it was worth it for me to spend 5 to 10 minutes sketching out the pose. So if I can do that at a convention table during a comic convention while I'm selling books and talking to people, I feel like doing an illustration, it's worthwhile to sit down and spend, let's just say that if you're going to spend 8 hours on a piece, it's worth spending maybe 30 minutes doing both composition thumbnails and color thumbnails. Like you can say out of that, you take 7.5 hours to do the whole finished piece. Just take 30 minutes to just work out all the details. But it sounds like you know that you just need to build up that habit. And I get that. Doing any kind of or building any kind of new creative habits is challenging. Just trying to decide whether I want to have the tail bright at the top or bright at the bottom. I'm undoing now and then just doing the same thing, but doing it this way, where it's in reverse. Yeah, I think that works for me. There we go. Cover for my next comic. So I will take that and drop that into a template. Oh, hey, thank you, Dylan. So the Robert Eggers movie I was trying to remember, The Norseman. That's it. Yeah, that was a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Um, Dylan says I was disappointed by The Witch. It was too slow and not much happened. Um, I was hoping to get into the Halloween spirit last month, but it went by too fast. The WB has a couple YouTube channels, and they do Scooby Doo live streams the whole month, showing a handful of episodes and one or two movies. Now, that's a good deal. That's pretty awesome. Um, as far as The Witch, I may still probably I'll probably watch it only because I really like Anna Joy Taylor. I think her name is the one who's in The Queen's Gambit and Furiosa. I like her in all the movies I've seen her in. Not every movie she's in is a great movie, but she's good in all the movies she does. So I wanted to watch that, and I mentioned The Lighthouse, and I will say that if you were disappointed by The Witch, you may well be disappointed by The Lighthouse too, because The Lighthouse is very slow and strange, and I'm prepared for that with The Witch. So yeah, it might be something where the lighthouse because that's the thing. This all started when we were talking about Nosferatu. That's how we got on the tip with him. And that movie does not look like it's going to be slow at all. That looks like about as actiony as he gets as a director, because he definitely feels like the kind of the auteur cinema in terms of like something that is dramatic and ethereal and more kind of in his movies feel more Rosemary's Baby to me than The Omen. Like they feel kind of indie, creepy, surreal as opposed to just over the top thriller. But you know, The Nosferatu trailer definitely looks very actiony, which it'll be interesting to see. And I see Jay King in the chat. Says, "What's good, brother and people? Making some progress here on a comic cover. In fact, I will catch up to the chat in a second. I just want to do one little thing in here. All right. Just a little bit of detail there. Then I'm gonna drop it into a color template. And Dylan says, I think a pointy red demon tail would look cool. Well, good. Happy to hear it. I think it came out pretty well. And Dylan says, I'm liking it I'm liking it so far. It's funny, but it feels off. Oh, we're talking about Agatha. I jump around a lot too. I'm liking it so far. It's funny, but it feels off. Sometimes villains need to be and stay pure evil. He says, I'm betting that guy is Wiccan, Wanda's son. That's that's a good point. I actually do think that is very possible. I'm trying to remember because they had Billy and Tommy in WandaVision. And I think that kid would make a very good, I can't remember which one is the Hulkling and which one is oh no, Hulkling is who Wiccan ends up dating. Um the brother is the speedster. Tommy is the speedster and Billy is the Wiccan, I think. It's been a long time since I've read Young Avengers. Although I did really, really enjoy that series. Yeah, the Hulkling is. Oh my god, that makes complete sense. Because remember, the boyfriend was calling. What if the boyfriend is Hulkling? That makes complete sense. Wow, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, in the very beginning, his boyfriend is calling to check up on him when he's driving. Okay, this isn't really a spoiler, but yeah, in the first episode of WandaVision, there's a young witch, a young male witch that is trying to join Agatha's, not WandaVision, of Agatha all along. In the first episode, there's a young witch who's trying to join Agatha's coven. She's a famous witch. He's obsessed with witchcraft. That makes complete sense. I don't know why, because at first my wife and I are both like, "Oh, that's going to be her son." Makes a whole, and how interesting would that be if the son of her nemesis joins her coven? That would be a really great turn. I really, really hope you're right, and I hope that that's Wiccan. Um, let's see here. Dylan says, "I've never thought of doing commissions at the convention. That sounds like an anxious time." Well, yeah. That well, I have thoughts on that, but real quick, let me see. I see Chris in the chat. And it says, "Hey, Jeremy, good to see you, Chris. Thanks for joining." Yeah, I am used to my name being autocorrected as Gemini. That is just how the internet sees me. So no worries. In terms of the commissions, um, generally, while we're talking, I'm gonna start setting up my next. Start setting up the actual cover. Let me copy this. So I actually tend not to do commissions at conventions. Oh wait, hang on. Let me merge this down. You know what? Why merge it down? Just copy all. I used to do commissions at the table at conventions, and now, generally speaking, if I have a chance, if someone comes to me with a commission, what I try to do is actually duplicate. I actually prefer to collect payment for the commission and then ask them if it's okay for me to send it to them after the show. And the reason for that is because, hang on, first I gotta, let me see. My naming convention for these is that I will name the 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 issue, and I'll call it 00 cover front. Let me delete that other stuff off of the back. Anyway, I would tend to do covers commissions at the shows, but I would prefer to mail them to people once they're done because I just I can't focus as well. It is stressful to do them at the shows, but for me, it's not so much the stress because I've learned to handle that fairly well and I'm, fairly comfortable with it. What I have trouble with is I end up not selling as much work at conventions because in order to do a good job, I really have to focus. I can't split my attention and just sort of scribble out a drawing. And if I do that, I'm not pitching my book to people, I'm not handing it to people, I'm not greeting people as they come by. And if you have an assistant or if you have a partner who's working the table with you, then you can keep your head down and just draw. And then when somebody buys something, you can take your head up, you can thank them. If they ask you questions about your artwork, you can talk to them while they're drawing. If someone else is there to engage with people at the convention, then you can be that person with your head down. But if you're doing a show by yourself, running the table by yourself, I have found I get much better results if I'm standing and engaging, greeting people, talking to them, saying hello, inviting them to look at my work, and answering questions, or if they happen to notice something interesting about a piece, being able to comment and chime in on things about it, that sort of thing. I find that that works a lot better for me at conventions. So, generally speaking, I would much rather be able to take they like my work. They commission me to do a piece. I ask them if it's okay for me to them send it to me, and then like I'll get home, and then within the next week or two, I can give that piece 100% focus because it might be something where it will only take me an hour or two to finish that piece. But for me personally, that piece is going to be of a much higher quality when I do convention, when I send it off to them, than if I did it at the table. There might be something where they're like, look, I got this at the show. Somebody drew it for me right there, and being able to take that home and show it to their friends and family, they may love that. But it's going to bug me that in my mind, it wasn't my best work, which again, back to perfectionism. Let's see here. And Chris mentions he's a Gemini too. Maybe that's why it's trying to get you on your horoscope tip. Dylan mentions I got some money this week and I ordered the first two issues of Ultra Mega off eBay. I'm excited to receive them. I'm looking forward to reading that series too. I think that they may actually have a collection of it from my library, and that's actually where I read most of my comics these days because we have too many books in this house, and anytime I bring in a new one, I got to get rid of another one. So, pardon me, I'm slurping on the stream a little bit. I'm finishing the last of my coffee through a straw. Oh, let's see here. But no, yeah, Ultra Mega, from everything I've seen, that's the James Heron one, I believe. Everything I've seen looks super cool for that. So And JRR says liking the cover idea so far. And Dylan says I do like Anna Taylor-Joy. Yes. And I still haven't seen Furiosa. That's something me and my wife and I should watch that this weekend. We've brought it up as a potential because we both enjoyed The Queen's Gambit. So we figure that should be a good one as well. I mean, they're very different tones, obviously, but you like a certain performer, and it's like let's see them do other stuff. All right, let me move my little. I have a little template folder file here. Let go. Here, it'll be easier if I just move this below. Anyway, so I have a file here, and it has all of the different formats that I need. So it has a traditional comic trade paperback frame size. Then it has the bleed for a single issue and the trim for a single issue. Then if I do a digital comic like on Kindle or any other digital, like if I'm doing it on the library, it for the library it has like what the digital frame tends to be. And then it has the safe area for the comic. So I have like all the different, and the safe area is just, I want to keep all of the word balloons inside of this. So let me turn this to multiply. This should be a completely transparent frame. That would be ideal. All right. Lock that so I don't start coloring on it. So all I'm doing here is just taking this and positioning it and I can drop the opacity. I'm going to end up turning the opacity back up because I think I'm going to end up coloring the whole thing with that blue color first and then sketch everything into it. In fact, this will make life easier if I just come in here, select this color. Again. Why is it not adding that to my swatches? My recent colors. Create a. Let me just scribble with this a little bit. That should do it. There it is. I could just change the whole thing to that. Now I've got a nice field to sketch into with these characters. Let's see here. Back up. Dylan says The Witch is also a bit psychological horror, which you will probably like since the Lighthouse is psychological horror. I don't like psychological horrors. I get that. It's something where there's not enough action in it, and sometimes you're just sitting there saying, what's going. The whole point of a lot of psychological horrors is that you're sitting there literally questioning what's going on. Why is this happening? And that can be frustrating to some audience members. Like for me, one of my favorite movies of all time is Jacob's Ladder. And that whole movie until like the very last shot is you just not knowing what's going on and why. And even at the end, the ending can be open to a lot of interpretations. So, but it is one of my favorite movies. So yeah, I'm definitely more of a psychological horror versus gore or slasher, that kind of thing. And hey, James is in the chat. Welcome, James. Thanks for joining us. He says, new project? Yes, new project. I have been meaning to. This is one that's going to be just a short comic story. So it's going to be like a one shot that I'm doing. And this is to give me one, to get back into the rhythm of making comics, and two, I'm still rewriting that Greek mythology story, and this way I can be putting more comics out while I'm finishing that up. And really, in a perfect world, what I'd like to do is have one story that I'm really being a perfectionist about, and I'm like just like really grilling on the whole time, and then one story that is just whatever, just fun ideas, whatever I feel like shooting out at the time. Let's see here. And Dylan says, "I love the colors you pick." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Dylan also asks, "Did you finish Meowdy?" Yes, yes, I did. Let me see. Let me hop over to. Well, before I go over to that, let me just answer JRR's question. What area are you in? Would be cool to see you at a convention. Well, I used to be in Southern California. Now I moved up the coast. I'm kind of in Central California, and the only convention that I have planned for next year is WonderCon in Anaheim. Other than that, I generally like California is kind of my home base, and that's where I tend to do shows. I haven't been out to Phoenix in a number of years, but I used to go out to before it was Phoenix Fan Fusion. I used to go to the Phoenix Comic Con and really enjoyed that show. There were a couple other shows out there, and also the amazing Las Vegas convention. Jimmy J's amazing shows have always been a good time for me. So I've done those shows. But yeah, basically California, more of the LA area, and I don't know. I haven't stepped back from conventions because I don't enjoy them. I've stepped back because I haven't been producing comics that quickly, and I noticed that if I don't really have much new work, I have a good time. I really enjoy talking to all the people that I see. In fact, my wife has said many times, she's like, less talking, more selling. But I obviously I enjoy talking with you guys. So I can just sit and talk art and process and creativity all day long. But the sales haven't been worth it. And I don't blame the economy. I don't blame, the ups and downs of the convention of the comic industry. I blame not bringing new and captivating work on a regular basis. To me, that's what I think sells. Whether it's comics, prints, stickers, keychains, whatever it is that you make, I think bringing new work to every show and bringing work that's eye catching to people, that's what makes shows worthwhile. So, WonderCon is the only show that I'm going to be doing in the near future. That said, I mean, I want to get back into doing conventions. So hopefully we'll see if there'll be some more opportunities in the future. But I feel like getting work done is more important. So, um, but Dylan did ask about Meowdy, which I have not made available as a print to purchase on my website yet, because I'm going to add, even though we're calling it Meowdy, I was going to add Kitty Up underneath the circle, kind of running around the bottom. But I am fairly happy with how this piece came out. Now, mind you, I can always be self-critical. There is no environmental lighting on this piece, meaning that the cools of the sky are not showing up in in some of the highlights of the character. The warmth of the ground isn't being reflected in the shadows, and so the environment is not affecting the character. She really is just floating in space, and that is something that it's worth correcting, but mentally I don't have it yet. I don't have it yet. My brain is not that good with color yet. And that's one of the things where I actually really need to spend more time doing outdoor drawing, outdoor observational sketching, painting, watercolor, digital, whatever. It doesn't matter what I do, but actually just going and sitting outdoors and observing light and environments. That's something I have really never spent much time doing. And that's a huge deficit in my creative education. Now that it occurs to me that we never had any type of plein air studies when I was in school. You think there'd be a whole class in just that, but no. Um, And even in classes that I've taken when I was living in LA, we did environment. Carl Ganas would take us out he would do a workshop, an outdoor drawing and painting workshop. And that's, he would definitely instruct us in terms of using color and capturing the environment. But it's not the same as going out week after week and going with an intentional goal of studying color and environment. So that's something I need to do more of. So let's see here. And James says, yes, Demon Dogs. Yeah, looks spooky. And also, I enjoyed The Witch. Okay, so we've got one not so much, one enjoyed. I am probably going to watch it. Maybe I will try to watch it because we're in the Halloween spooky season. This would be a good time to watch it. So we'll go back up to, you know. Um, and James says, I wonder if the short strips lead to longer but similar stories, kind of like how a short story leads to a novel. Well, that's very possible. I mean, for me, part of the idea is that generally speaking, I tend to write and draw my stories. Like I think in terms of novels, a whole story with a beginning, middle, and end, and that is the leading cause to my perfectionism and spending forever working on a project trying to get things just right. So the idea behind having just a short story is that, hang on, I got to figure out. Let me go back to my little reference sheet. Take this. Okay. What was I saying? Well, simply that I want to not have to have everything I do be an incredibly thought out, long, detailed story. So I very much would love for this to eventually to grow into a collection of stories that form an overall novel, something that's kind of like Hellboy, where you eventually get an overall larger arc. But I want to get there without having to plan everything out the way that I normally do, because then it would just become another story where I spend 2 or 3 years sketching and roughing things out and writing and doing character studies and character sketches. And instead, I'd rather just be able to dive right in and start telling the story. So that's, yeah, I do absolutely think and hope that this turns into some type of novel. Let's see here. Am I drawing on the low opacity layer? No. Oh, that's right. So, excuse me. So, one of the things that I changed is I created a template that is 450 DPI instead of 300 DPI, just to give me a little bit of extra space in case this, I want to expand, like enlarge my book, maybe make the print size kind of an oversized, not necessarily an absolute edition, but just to give me some space as opposed to, because normally my books are a little bit smaller. They're like large manga size. So it's eight and a half by 5.5. That's the print size of my books. But that's smaller than the standard American comic book size. And as opposed to drawing for this smaller size, I thought, let me draw for something that could potentially be bigger and larger, just giving me room in case I want to do like a hardcover edition later on, or like the European album size, which I think is a very beautiful format. So it's kind of like a magazine size, 8.5 by 11. And I thought drawing this at comic size, drawing this at US comic size, but 450 DPI, so I have 300 DPI, just gives me a little bit more room to play with the image quality while keeping the resolution. So let's see here. And Dylan says, I think my phone hates James. He says this is the second time in one stream where his comments aren't even showing up on my phone, even though I have show all comments in the setting. Well, that's because we're on different platforms. So I'm streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at the same time right now. And James is on Facebook. And for some reason, YouTube can be a little bit of a jerk to Facebook viewers and not necessarily show all of the comments, even though I see everyone's comments from all of the platforms. But for for YouTube viewers, it may not do that, and that's one of the reasons why when we're having the conversation, I tend to go and put people's comments on the screen, so that way people from other platforms can see what the hell I'm talking about. Let's see here. Oh, and James says, I met you when you were in San Jose a while ago. You know what? That has to have been a long, long time ago because I think that it was the Big Wow, I think was the last time I did a show up in the San Jose area, which, you know what? That is a good point, is that there are shows up in San Jose, and that's where I am is kind of like I think equidistant between LA and San Jose. So I don't know if it's closer, but I know that there are still shows up there. So maybe I should look into that. Maybe I can come up and do a show in San Jose sometime in the future. So let's see here. And JRR says, "Oh, cool. I'm in NorCal Bay Area. Maybe I'll have a chance to see you out there when you decide to do cons more regularly." Yeah, I think as I get more comic projects done, whether it's getting this into a print issue or getting the next comic going, that I will definitely be looking at doing more shows. So we'll have to figure out. And plus, it's one of those things where it's also working it around my work schedule, my day job, and all of that. But yeah, I definitely would love to be getting in front of some people and doing some more shows. So let's see here. Dylan asks, "Do you remember last stream when I mentioned how just I mentioned just selling comics might look weird? Well, I found an artist earlier this week who does just that, and he's very successful with that setup." Um, hmm, selling just comics. Well, I mean, hell, I think just selling comics, hell, if comics are what someone's making and they want to just come out, give me a little bit of context. So you talk about somebody coming to a convention and having just their books and no prints, no sketches, no anything else, just the comics. Is that what we were talking about? Because my memory is foggy. I feel like that's what we were talking about, but I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page with you. And by the way, just so you guys know, we're a little bit past an hour. So after we finish this topic about the selling of comics or selling stuff at conventions, I think we'll probably wrap things up here. So if there's anything else you want to get in or mention, now is the time. You know what? Let me scoot this over. Give myself a little bit more room to draw. I'm not quite happy with this character's pose. I'm trying to intentionally kind of have the humanoid figure's head cocked to one side like a dog, and then the dog's head cocked to one side, so they're kind of mirroring each other. So let's see here. So Dylan mentions correct. I just wanted to sell comics and nothing else, but then I found an artist that just sells comics and is pretty successful at that setup. Um, I think that, I mean, you absolutely should totally try that. Um, the interesting thing about doing creative work is that there will be a ton of people that will say you need to do A or B or C, and there will always be outliers who no one can tell you what your creative career is supposed to be like. And there's always going to be people who do something that everyone else said was impossible, or they do things their own. And I'm not even saying that selling just comics is impossible. There's always going to be people who do things their own way and are going to shock and astound in a positive way. And my greater point is, I am much more a fan of trying things and seeing what happens versus trying to figure everything out and pre-plan everything. Like pre-planning everything and trying to find the secret formula to convention success or comic success is a road to driving yourself crazy, because there is no perfect formula, and you can try something that everyone else says you got to do this, you got to do that, and you'll get no traction, and it'll drive you nuts that you're not getting the results or the sales that you want. And then you try, just one random thing that no one else ever mentioned before, and you're like, oh my god, this is my thing, this is how I can make a living doing comics. um, if you want to just do comics and nothing else, then do that and see how it goes. And before, if it's rough going, it's rough going for most people when they start out a new business venture, and that's what it is. It's a business venture. Um, if things are rough going and you're not getting the results you want early on, the problem may not be that you're just selling only comics. The problem may be how the comics are marketed to. The problem might be going to the right convention where people that are interested in what you have to sell are there. Um, the problem could be, I mean, there's all kinds of things that aren't necessarily an indicator that you need to sell other things besides comics. So I say, absolutely, if that is what you're passionate about and that's all you want to do it. The only reason why I sell prints is because I actually genuinely enjoy making standalone illustrations that aren't simply a comic book. And also the fact that for me, it takes me so long to finish a comic. But if you're fast, if you work at a quicker pace, then it is absolutely worthwhile to just do comics. So I would say go for it. So Chris asks a interesting question. What are people looking for to qualify for good comic work? Hmm. Well, that is a highly subjective question, and you're going to get a lot of different answers. So everything that I say you need to take with a grain of salt. And the fact of the matter is you can ask 10 different comic creators and you're going to get 10 different answers. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask anybody. It means go ahead and keep asking that question and listen to the answers you get, and then try out some of the responses and results, to figure out what you want to do. For me, I would say that good comic work is a combination of interesting storytelling and I don't want to say good draftsmanship because there's lots of artists who have very unconventional styles who I am a fan of. What's the name of the guy that I'm thinking of? There's a specific artist I'm thinking of who I think is an amazing artist, but he has a very odd style. Um, Ted McKeever. That's who I'm thinking of. Ted McKeever. I love Ted McKeever's work. I'm in no way saying that Ted McKeever is a bad artist. I think he's a fantastic artist, but he is a unconventional comic book artist. Does not have a Marvel style. Does not have a DC style. Um, I mean, honestly, you could even say that his work, like if you look at Kevin Eastman's artwork, Eastman and Laird's early Ninja Turtles work, like I would say that that's kind of in the tone. Like I think Ted McKeever is like if you took the Eastman work and then said, "I'm going to go do Vertigo comics." That's Ted McKeever. Very weird, very strange, very expressionistic as opposed to impressionistic. Um, so this goes into a conversation that we were having last week with Amar on the stream, and he was saying that the writing is more important than the art. Um, I'd say, and my point was that I feel like the art in comics, particularly, the art and the writing are equally important. But just because they're equally important does not mean that draftsmanship is the most important thing. What's important is that the artwork fits the story. So if I wanted to do something that was a really cute, friendly story, something that's cute and fuzzy and fun, but the story is a horror story. Now that worked well. I've mentioned Tony Fleece and it's not Anna Forrester, but her last name is Forrester. The artwork, and I apologize to her because I've mentioned the book multiple times. If I'm going to keep mentioning it, I should learn her name. But the artist on it, it's a horror story, the serial killer who kidnaps the dogs of his victims. Like he keeps the dogs. Um, that book works because of the juxtaposition between the style and the artwork. But normally, you want to have art that complements the story. I think going the other way, where you've got something that is very gritty, but you're using it for a something that should be a fun, maybe a kid's story or an adventure story, but you're drawing it like Tim Vigil's Faust. That's a weird combo. That doesn't quite work. Um, Now, somebody who can work just as easily with something that's fun and light and dark and serious, Charles Vess. I don't know if you're familiar with Charles Vess, but he is a fantasy illustrator who like very much can do beautiful children's picture books and very cute and sensitive, almost like Beatrix Potter type artwork, but then could also do something that is very dark, like horror, like some of the darker Neil Gaiman stories. He's definitely, he's collaborated with Neil Gaiman on a few projects. Um, that's something I could definitely see. Point being, Chris, subjective. What people are looking for is to be entertained. They're looking for something that brings them in, makes them feel like they didn't waste their time watching, reading, looking at it, and want to come back to it, and want to come back for more. And that can take the the form of a lot of different styles, and can take a form of a lot of different types of stories. Um, so I think the most important thing is to try and entertain yourself first. Look at the types of stories that you really enjoy personally, and then try to not necessarily mimic them, but say, all right, like in the beginning of this stream, we were talking, Dylan had mentioned that, you know, that he'd watched Night of the Living Dead for the first time, and it gave him some ideas that he wrote down in his notebook. If you sit down and you read some books and you're just some ideas pop into you that aren't this book, but it's if that book, if the whatever your book you're reading or movie you're watching, if it just took a left turn or it explored an avenue that they didn't explore in the book that you're reading, that's the kind of stuff you want to go into. is you are your own first audience. You have to entertain yourself before anything else. And then from there you look, you explore, it's a testing process. You kind of have to make things knowing that they're not going to hit the mark, put them out in the world, see how people respond, and then make something else, which is again why it's better to do short stories instead of doing big ass epics like I've been doing. Um, so Dylan asks, where did you get the inspiration for Demon Dogs? That is a great question. It's been too long since I um, came up with the idea. And something I've been doing more recently over the past few years is when I come up with an idea, I now try to write down what the inspiration is because I often do not remember. But hmm, I'm really trying to reach back into my memory and see if there's any thoughts on the time when I came up with this story because I've had this story laying around in just a Word document for a few years. You know what? I will try to think of that, and if I can remember where this story came from, I will definitely bring it up and discuss it in future streams. But for the life of me, at the moment, I cannot remember where this story came from. Let's see here. So Dylan mentions in the past live stream, I also mentioned that I would be down to selling trading cards and postcard-sized posters. And Dylan says, yes, experiment like a scientist. That is the most important thing. Keeping a sales record, not just of what items sell best, how much you sell of each item, and also keep track of your costs because another reason, honestly, why I've leaned into making more prints is that it costs more to make a comic than it does to make a print. However, I can sell, a print for, anywhere from 20 to $40, whereas most people usually are only willing to pay, $5, the people will pay $10 for a good indie comic. But if you look at the amount of work that you put into a comic versus a print, the obviously prints are far more profitable. Difference being is that you can do a comic and people will buy the next issue and the next issue and the next issue. Whereas if you do a really cool print, somebody may buy 2 prints, 3 prints of yours, but at a certain point they're going to be like, all right, my wall is covered. I don't have any more wall space. I don't have any more room to put your stuff on my walls. So there's a more of a cap with prints than there is with comics. Let's see here. So James mentions Simon Beasley comes to mind. Yeah, that's another expressionistic artist. Yeah, James says I'd say his stuff is expressionistic, very much so. Yeah, and I have a lot of different artists whose styles I like. I'm not set on just one specific style. That's one of the reasons why I love Bill Sienkiewicz. He's probably my favorite artist because he does so much. He can have watercolor next to oils, next to colored pencil sketches, next to ink, next to collage, and not just in the same comic, but on the same page. And he makes it look amazing. So we'll see if I get time to finish this cover before next week. It might be something where every week I'm just working on a little bit of this or a little bit of a comic book page while I'm doing other stuff during the week. Because for the most part, in between the live streams, I get a little bit of time to make artwork during the week, and then I have figure drawing class. And I haven't done one of those fixing bad figure drawing sessions in a while. So maybe next week I'll do that. This is one of those where my perfectionism is kind of cutting in. I'm not happy with this compared with the thumbnail I did. The thumbnail felt like perfect, and this doesn't feel perfect. But I think this is one of those where I need to be able to draw while I'm not talking, so I can actually sit there and use my critical artistic skill, my critical artistic thinking to say this needs to be longer, this needs to be shorter, fix this, change that. Because I didn't do any character designs before this. This goes into what we were talking earlier about with JJR about just jumping into a piece without doing color thumbnails. And yes, I did color thumbnails for this, but I've done no character designs. I just sort of pulled images that look like what I expect the characters to look like and was like, let's just go from there. So that's what I get. I get a cover that looks a little bit wonky to me and probably will need a little bit of massaging. Oh, look at that. So Dylan says, I just ordered 16-piece Posca pens and saved 50% too. So score. All right. Good deal. Glad you found a nice deal on some pens. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it here. Next week, maybe we'll do some figure drawing, or we'll just continue with working on this comic. Who knows? Who knows? All right. So on that note, I forgot to even mention tomorrow, Art Book Study Group. For anyone who's a patron, we do the Patreon exclusive live stream. It's where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around and try to suck out all the knowledge we can. We call that Art Book Study Group. For as little as $2 a month, you can head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy and sign up. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. When we do those, we have a Patreon exclusive Discord server, and we have a voice channel open. So while I'm streaming, not only can you text and chat with me, but you can actually hop on and just talk like normal human beings and converse while we're drawing. You can ask questions. You can post artwork in the Discord server if you want me to do a draw over or talk about a specific drawing issue or something that you're having challenges with. Maybe I can help you work through that. And also, there's a backlog of previous live streams. Our previous art book study groups, there's a catalog of, at this point, hundreds of hours of live stream studies. We've been doing a long-range study on Walt Reed's The Figure. We have some videos that we did on some George Bridgman art books, Ken Holtgren animal drawing. And it's just a great chance for me to share how I try to improve my own artwork by studying from art books and sharing. Hopefully that can inspire you guys into ways to either learn alongside with me or to take the books that you have and study from those resources and hopefully improve your craft as well. All of that, you also get access to a digital archive to read my comics online. So head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can head on over to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a standalone psychological thriller. I am the artist, writer, letterer, publisher, grade toner of it. I did everything but roll through the printing press. So you can pick up this book there. You can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. So the original series was published in 8 issues of individual comics, and Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion to this series, issues 5 through 8. Both of them have extensive back matter. They've got script excerpts, character designs, thumbnails, page layouts, photo reference. I basically show you how I put the entire comic book together. So you can check all those out. And if you want to see what's inside the books, before picking them up, go to my YouTube channel and you can see book flip-throughs there. Just scroll down from the home page. There'll be a section for flip-throughs, and you can see what's inside all these books before picking them up. All right, guys. Again, always love seeing you. Always love hanging out, spending time with you. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. If you know anyone else that you think would enjoy these videos, please pass them on. And hopefully I'll see some of you at Art Book Study Group tomorrow night. It'll be 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And like I said, there's a library of previous live streams. And if you miss this one, it'll get added to that library so you can watch it, watch the replay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. That's it for now. Go be creative.